Hi, this is Robert Clickybeard with the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. We're going to take about 30 minutes of your life to deliver some amazing content from accomplished leaders, business owners, to provide you some great Ironman mindsets to help you scale your business, to become a better leader and push yourself out of a comfort zone into something that's going to stretch you. We hope you really enjoy these shows and encourage you to like and share with your friends, your network, family members. Try and get a wider audience and improve our industry. On each show, I'm going to try and pull out one type of Ironman mindset, insight that you can take back to your business. And if you're implementing one insight every single week or all the shows, then it's going to make a dramatic improvement to your business. Super excited as well to share that we're partnering up with Boss Business Management Software, which is the ultimate cloud-based solution providing comprehensive insights and tools to optimize performance. Join the Boss community today and transform your business so you too can say, my boss is working for me. Cheers, everyone. Hi, this is Robert Clickybeard with the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. I'm super excited to be joined across the pond by Jonathan Mond. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Robert. Exciting to be here. I think you mentioned earlier you don't get a lot of international guests, so I'm excited to be one of your few international guests and giving a voice from somewhere else in the world with some thoughts and knowledge. So yeah,
I know. Maybe we need some type of transcriber.
No. My accent is not only easy. If you transcriber, they're talking to a Scot here.
Yeah, true.
I think the Aussie accent's a lot easier than the Scottish accent.
Well, I keep losing my accent, so I'm upset by that. But Jonathan, I know you're across in, I believe, Melbourne, Australia, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
So tell me a little bit about your background. Just what you've been doing. I suppose your highlights of your career history, please.
So, simple stuff. Married, 3 children, all over the age of 20. About 18 years ago, I think, my wife was a fashion designer, asked me to come work for her one day. And that meant setting up a business. She had set it up, and it was in the early days. And she asked me to come along and give her a hand, particularly in the finance side and operation side, while she spent her time doing what she does best, and that is on the design side. So we put together a small company. We ended up with retail stores, about 10, through Melbourne, Australia. We had online presence. We had agencies throughout Australia selling our product as well. And then I'm going to say in simple terms, we woke up one day and felt it was time to do something a little different, and we'd achieved what we wanted to achieve. So we moved that business on. We sold it, and that was my first experience at not only being an entrepreneur, but basically setting up and selling a business. I think on reflection, I remember being quite proud of the achievement, and again, should be. But I remember thinking how well I've done. And now, which we'll talk about what the journey's been since that, I feel like I left so much on the table. And that's part of my inspiration of what I do now, meaning that I don't think I maximised my sale. So let's talk about what post that. Prior to that, I had an accounting degree. Never sat in an accountant's office doing tax. It was all about CFO work for small to medium-sized businesses, and whether they employed me on a weekly basis, daily basis, monthly, every 2 weeks, whatever it was. And ultimately, my job was to coordinate the finances with any business and then prepare reports and present them at a monthly meeting, whether it was a board level or whether it was just the owners or the senior leadership team. Had a really good run with that. One gentleman in particular, a very close friend of mine, was giving me a bit of work. He was doing some consulting in the finance area as well. And he said to me, he challenged me, he said, Jonathan, you're doing a great job when it comes to presenting the reports and preparing them. But imagine your commentary says that we're not doing well here or we're doing well there. If your commentary included the fix it as opposed to what the problem was. He said, that would take you to the next level. I thought, wow, well, that's really interesting. And started thinking about it and realised what great advice that was. And I think that was on a Wednesday afternoon from memory. I do remember it quite well. And by Friday afternoon, I'd signed up to do an MBA. So I realised it was all about helping companies improve, not just present. So MBA, I completed that within about an 18 months period. It was an intense one. I deliberately chose that. At the age of 47, I didn't want to wait. I wanted to get into it, and I dedicated myself to that. This particular individual, Alan Mills was his name. Alan had just completed a chapter in a book called Scaling Up. So Alan said, wow, I've just been invited to talk to Vern, with Vern, and Vern's asked me to write a second half of a chapter in his book called Scaling Up. There's 4 areas to the book. Chapter 4, which is the cash section, he had the first part of the chapter, and second part was Alan's. And Alan's was talking about the power of one and financial excellence. And he said, this methodology that I've just written for looks amazing. Well, if I were you, I would probably do that next, become certified as a scaling up coach. And so it was through Alan's advice that I contacted the organisation. And one of the first questions they asked me was my background. And with my accounting degree, my accounting background, they said, there's definitely a shortage of accountants or accounting knowledge or numbers knowledge within the coaching world. And a lot of people are, and there's numerous reasons behind this, a number of people that are sitting in that consulting role and not really great with the finance side. And so to have someone that comes on board with that knowledge we're always looking for, and we feel it's a deficiency across the board, and we'd love to have you on. And so I went on the scaling up journey, becoming certified. That took another 12 months. And here we are today. And that accounting side has served me well. It has served me really well. We use some software called Cashflow Story. And Cashflow Story is all about 3 things. It's about simplifying the numbers. It's about identifying the profit story and the cash journey with any set of financials. And then finally, the power of one. And that power of one is, I believe, is a strategic piece of information, strategic part of the software, where what I call you can create strategy from your financials through the power of one. So I guess in simple terms, I was very lucky. I got tapped on the shoulder by the guy upstairs and said, Jonathan, that's what you do well. Everybody does something well. I got lucky in that I do numbers well. I see them, I understand them, things click. I think I was also lucky, without realising it at the time, that my wife, working for her, she wasn't great at numbers. And so I had to realise that the world wasn't. I just thought it was natural that everybody did. And that taught me to really try and simplify numbers and tell the story behind them. So that's been my grooming, that's been my background. As a coach, I believe I've got all 4 areas covered, particularly the cash side, the financial excellence, and I start all my engagements with cash, and I start every one of them with trying to find some priorities that can push on the profit, cash, and valuation of any business. So that's a little bit about me, yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Jonathan, I mean, you said some key things in there. Obviously, it sounds like, when you started up your business in the first place, you didn't have that experience. And very few people go through that entrepreneurial cycle where they start a business and then they end up selling the business. So, you experience both ends of it, which I think is really unique. So that's really important to mention. And then the second piece is, that financial knowledge. That's, when I go in and do, coaching or talk to potential prospects, I would say probably 8 out of 10 people probably really struggle with that financial knowledge. They steer away from it. They're just intimidated by it. And the fact that you just talked about it almost like, it's a story. It tells a story, which is really key. And it just makes it, I suppose, less intimidating.
I agree. And there's a couple of things there. I'm not sure if I circled back to what I was saying before, but what I've learned now, if only I knew back then, I probably would have maximised my valuation. I absolutely, on reflection, left so much on the table by not understanding. Back to what you said, I was just young up here and didn't really, what you don't know is what you don't know. And I wish I knew to read the books like Scaling Up and all those great entrepreneurial books and best practices book, which I didn't do. I went with the flow and I thought, I'm going to be okay. But on reflection, I wasn't. But we have a great saying, I have a great saying, I think, and that is your financials are your scoreboard. It's the scoreboard of all the decisions you've ever made. So if you are not reading your scoreboard, if you're not looking up at that scoreboard, then how do you know you've made great decisions along the way? And we see that every day in sport. What's the point of going to a sporting contest if there's no scoreboard? I know, Rob, you've got a great background, a Scottish background, and that'll be a great background in golf. look at the leaderboard in golf. It's the sum of all the decisions you make. Should I play a 5-iron or a 4-iron? Should I putt or should I chip? They're all decisions we've made. And if you don't look at the scoreboard, then how do you know you've made the right decisions? And in financials, it's exactly the same. And that's why I'm trying to encourage people. Not only do you want to look at the scoreboard, but you want to have the brutal facts in front of you with that score by saying, have I made good decisions? And if I haven't, what decisions should I make in the future to improve my scoreboard to win at the end of the day?
That's so true. I use that story all the time. If you're sitting at some sporting event, rugby, football, golf, whatever, and you don't have that scoreboard, how are you supposed to either get excited, understand the game, play the game? There's so many things that come to mind, and you just be sitting there, almost confused, trying to decide what to do. But then it also then touches on, we live in a world where AI is just like exploding. Things are changing so much, and all this data is now becoming more and more available to us. And how do we use that data to help us make decisions? And unless we're diving into that data, understanding it, trying to understand it, slicing and dicing it, then it's tough for us to try and make decisions.
So that's an interesting thought, because there's one area that hasn't changed, and particularly as you mentioned AI, that I've noticed, and that is the comfort around financials if you're not good at it. And what do I mean by that? All companies have two people that own the financials in their business. The first one is their accountant, and the second one is probably their finance manager, finance team, finance individual. And what I've discovered is with those two people, most people have comfort, but it's not true. Your accountant, by definition, do a terrific job in keeping you compliant. Their job is the compliance. Accountants, have you ever met an accountant that's not busy? That's because there's so much compliance going on. They don't have time to help you strategize your business. And I think people it's a misconception that you've got it covered when you really don't. All you've got covered is a historical compliance. Further to that, you've got your finance team, and their job is to provide you reporting, but they generally just report. And that's what I was referring to before. Are they coming back with in-depth understanding of the relationships within the financials that help you make better decisions? I mentioned to you Cashflow story simplifies the numbers, as well as showing you the two journeys that most companies don't really understand and respect: the story of profit and the journey of cash. And so as much as you can have AI and all those things, I think we've missed the most important part, and that's the comfort that people think they have when they actually probably don't.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, very good point. Yeah, because, we're sitting now, we're doing this recording middle of October. It's actually coming up to tax time here, tomorrow. And people are going into strategic planning, trying to plan for next year, and to have that sort of financial data, the analysis, and build that strategy around some of those numbers is crucial.
Absolutely. And it's deeper than that as well. And so what I've learned, just to change gears a little bit, what have I learned in the last year or 2 years? I've been coaching now for over 6 years. And what I've learned during these tough times, as we know, we're in election mode, interest rates, inflation, all of those things. One thing is paramount in running a business. Face-to-face activities with customers will always get you through. It might be more difficult and your conversion rate might be lower. But the companies, the teams, the people that get out there and do the face-to-face activities are winning this battle. Maybe slower, but they are winning. And there's two reasons behind that from what I've seen. One, it's just respect towards the customer and saying you've got time for them and they appreciate that. But two, your opportunity to listen to them. And when you listen to them, you can better improve your product or service to their needs. And you could have a breakthrough based on that. And for all you know, what's even better, it might be tough, but if you find that little breakthrough, that one little thing that you've discovered by standing in their shoes, by listening to them, as opposed to thinking that you know better by standing in your boardroom and talking, could actually be the breakthrough that changes your business forever. In an environment where there's minimal orders, you might win all of them and go on a road to quite a successful road. So I encourage everybody, when it's tough, do the number one thing, and that is get out from behind your desk, spend time with your customers, and you will find that things will start to turn. It may not turn to what it used to be, but you'll set yourself up for a better opportunity moving forward. So there's my number one advice to people who are finding it a little challenging. In the same breath, I feel like the world is going to explode for good. The election will finish soon. We'll wake up from that election in the States and everything will be back to normal, if we believe that. And interest rates will probably find its point. And so once the confidence comes back, you're going to see opportunities. And again, be out there ready for those opportunities, get ready for them.
No, 100%. I think you said something really key there. Meeting your customers and just talking to them and learning their struggles. I go back to so many companies I help and coach, and their primary reason for meeting with clients is to propose a price increase for next year. And I'm thinking, well, that's great, but if you haven't seen them all year and been talking to them all year, where's the relationship? Where's the trust? And now suddenly you're going to spring a 3, 5, 7% price increase on them? I said, that's not really going to go down well. So why not have ongoing conversations with them, build that trust?
Couldn't agree more. And that ongoing conversation is never a sales conversation. It's a beer, it's a coffee, it's a wine. It's something to say, hey, how are you? How are you going? What can I do better for you? I'm not here to grab a sales order from you. I'm just here to know how I'm going, what I'm doing, what I can do better to help you. Because everybody in the world has a pain point. Okay. 100%. And based on that pain point, we do things around that, whether it's in business or in life, and we need to satisfy that pain point, you know. And so if your job as a supplier to people at the end of the day is to find the pain points, find those things that keep them up at night and see if you can assist. And it's interesting you say the price point. I promise you that if you spend the time during the year, you will not need to meet them for a price increase. It'll be the easiest conversation you've had all year because you've spent time fine-tuning your product or your service. They'll already love you. You will be their number one supplier and they won't think twice about it. It's insignificant if you solve their pain points.
No, that's so true. So true. Talking about pain points, you know, I think we're on a WhatsApp channel with EO where we're seeing some of the challenges that people from all around the world are concerned about, you know, whether it be reduced sales, revenue, having to let people go. I mean, it's just that whole WhatsApp channel just explodes. And obviously you've come up with some great ideas. And what are some of the things that you're seeing either on a local level or maybe even national or global level? What are you seeing out there?
Oh, look, I think I've probably covered on most of them. There's a lack of confidence in the economy, and most economies at the moment based on interest rates and inflation. Yes, you're probably inhibited in the States through the election as well. But generally, I'm finding there are opportunities out there. You've just got to get them. I'd be repeating myself, from what I said previously just a few minutes ago. Being out there. Be out there. Just get out there and get from behind your desk and get out there. Some great stories that I've encountered when people tell me, I don't need to get out, and then I force them to get out, and then they come back with information they didn't realise, and they change their whole strategy around it. People at the end of the day, I often say, to the world you are, to us we are what? Simply so, it's, oh God, I've got too many Australian examples, but in simple terms, the world sees, IKEA, the world sees a furniture company. But IKEA is, a flat pack building, a flat pack company. Why? Because it reduces costs to allow a cheaper product to hit the market. So everything has to be packed in a way that doesn't, you're not shipping air in containers and things like that. And how do you find that out? By just talking to your customers. What are the things your customer wants you to be at the end of the day? So, yeah. But I have encountered, interesting enough, if we reflect back onto the finance part, what I have noticed is truly the lack of understanding in the relationships of financials. And understanding those financials is a terrific start to creating a strategy and building on something for the future. You mentioned the word setting budgets for 25. Most companies naturally just throw another 5% on, 10% on their budget. Why do they do it? Oh, because you should be growing. Great, okay. What's your action plan to do that? And why have you done that? And so not sure if you're interested, Rob, but I'd love to show you how I open that conversation when it comes to budgets.
Yeah, because one of the things that immediately goes to the revenue piece, but obviously people have been somewhat inflated or bloated for many years. So there's also other ways in helping to reduce that. And I think your tool right here is going to be super helpful in simply showing people some of I think you mentioned earlier, this is around the 7 levers.
Yeah, 7 levers within any set of financials are 7 levers that you can pull. And those levers, in simple terms, are the small but powerful changes that you can make to your business. So give me 2 minutes of your time with this one as an intro. This is a case study on our software that I've brought up, so it's public, anyone can see this one. And it's just terrific in explaining how well explaining the relationships within its financials. Very simply, this is a company that $24 million in revenue. Last period, they went up by 2.5 million on 2.2, so a little over 10% growth in revenue. Their gross margins kicked in, kicked up, so they received a 1.22% gross margin. Simple fact here, Robert, if you're going to talk about valuation in businesses, if you're going to talk about multiples, that reporting season that you see on, CNBC and the Wall Street, Journal and all those things, they always talk about whether 3 things: revenue, increase, gross margin, and net profit. They're always looking for improvements. I can promise you, if you don't get the revenue part right, that you get big improvements in gross margin or net profit, you will be looked upon very favourably. So my number one comment, if you're going to grow, make sure economies of scale kick in and that the gross margin improves as well as revenue, and your overheads improve as well. So, or relationship to the percentage improvement. You want to see revenue growth that improves your business as a whole. So if I very quickly show you this one, we can see it here. This particular company had a 13.2% increase in the previous period, and cost of goods only went up by 11.4, 11.6 and 9.5. Simply telling me economies of scales have kicked in, efficiencies have kicked in, terrific little story. Revenue has grown, overheads has grown at a quicker rate than revenue. So I would say, what's going on here? Why is overheads growing at a quicker rate? They should be coming back. I want to see improvement. But then I want to flick across to the power of one. And this is really the key to this. Key to your team. It's not just the leader, it's the whole team. You want to take your team on this journey. There's a number of reasons why. But let me go through it. It's the 7 levers that you can pull. The first 4 are measured in percentage, and the bottom 3 are measured in days. The first 4 push on cash and profit. What I like to say here is the first 4 find your hidden cash. This is cash that you've never seen before. In other words, if you continue to track at your normal rate, you will produce X amount of profit and X amount of cash per year. You will produce, in this particular company, if they found a 1% price increase, you'll produce an additional $190,000 worth of cash. You'll produce an additional $240,000 worth of profit. Now, think about this in a perspective of valuation. If I was looking at a 5 times multiple on a business, we were looking to sell it. All of a sudden, I've just found 240 by 5. Okay, I've just found well over another $1 million in valuation with a 1% price increase.
That's huge.
Team, what are we doing about it? Why can't we get a 1% price increase? And then everyone's going to come back and tell you why you can't, but challenge it, push it, get a session together, get a workshop together on how you can activate these things. What I will show you next is the biggest, probably eye-opener that most companies don't understand, and that is cost of goods. If I have a look here, a 1% price or cost of goods improvement will produce $147,000 in cash and $150,000 on profit. Again, on a 5 times multiple, I suddenly found you $750,000 additional when it comes to valuation. But have a look at this relationship compared to volume. How many companies talk about, and I just mentioned it when it comes to putting their budget together, look at a top-line revenue increase. They're always pushing on revenue increase. But for this company, it's the least of the drivers that they can pull almost. I mean, overheads is another one, but it's third in line. What would happen to this business if I shut down the revenue growth? and said, team, all I want to do for this particular period is get a 2% price increase and a 2% cost of goods reduction. I can find another $674,000, what I call the hidden cash. This is cash we never had before, we're not going to get, because it's not sitting in the balance sheet. That will reduce debt, that will free up cash for other investments in the future, whatever we want to do, and $780,000 worth of additional profit with those two little movements. 780 times it by 5, suddenly you found three.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, I can start picturing now how this completely relates then to your strategy for next year. Because if you have these, work on those two different items, and then you could try and figure out, well, you know, what do I need to do then to have that cost of goods reduction? What are some of the strategies around that? You negotiating with vendors, your suppliers?
Well, this is the part that I said you need your whole team, because remember, I've got the 7 leaders here, but they're all controlled by different elements of your business. Price and volume are probably controlled by the guy sitting at the top, marketing and sales. Cost of goods will be owned by operations. Overhead reductions probably in the finance department if you're going to look at budget management when it comes to overheads and how much we've got allocated, and probably the guy sitting at the top as well. Receivables and payables are accounts, and inventory days, which we haven't even got to yet, is sitting in operations as well. So this is a team effort. It's a team effort in producing cash, profit and valuation, driving the business valuation at any one point in time. So there you go on that level. We mentioned this particular company was growing, their overheads were growing quicker than its revenue, which I would like them to focus on. So I would say, I really want you to reduce your overheads by 2%, find a way of pulling it back so that our resource allocation is more efficient. Again, I've just found you more cash, more profit. And then this particular company, I know that its inventory was going a little bit over the top. They had too much. It was growing too quick. I think it went from 68 to 80. So, hey, let's pull back 5 days. And there's $205,000 of cash that's sitting in the bank account now. For in receivables and payables, $65,000 per day, and then accounts payable, 41. What interesting thought for you. If I was to look at cash flow management, the 3 things around those, well, the accounts receivable, inventory, and payables. Accounts receivable, generally in inventory, push on a company's ability to pay their bills. Makes sense? The slower you collect, the more stock you're probably holding, because stock is really an investment in cash. That allows freed up cash, and do we pay our bills on time? I'm a big believer that you need to pay your bills on time. In tight economies, in when particularly as we saw through COVID and what I learned, the people that pay quicker are the people that get looked after. So I'm always encouraging, if you're going to collect one day quicker, try and pay one day quicker. It's not perfect for cash flow, of course, but wow, from a reputation and ability to have a rapport with your suppliers for the future in whatever way that looks, particularly potentially under cost of goods, it's such a good tactic to employ within the business. So I actually like to start with that. Where are we at with our payables? How can we actually pay them quicker? What are those other 6 levers that we can pull so we can pay quicker?
I can think of so many examples of not necessarily the payables piece, but, well, a couple of examples of payables where people were almost paying too quickly. But because things are sluggish, because people are concerned about cash flow, they've definitely seen a lot of their clients slow down payments to them. And then I start asking deeper questions about, well, do you have an AR process? How do you collect? What's the steps? And I get that blank look in the face. And your model right there just shows the big difference it can make if you're reducing, your AR by a day or a couple of days. I mean, it's just huge.
Let me give you a couple of examples of where this has been amazing. And what's the reaction from people that I've spoken to? I have worked with companies that's anywhere from 10 million to 422 million. And the reaction is exactly the same. One of my best ones was 2 weeks ago. I had a session with a client in the States. By the way, I do Australia and internationally. Together in the States, I have clients everywhere. And I was asked to help another coach. Said, I just want to drive home the benefits of the Power of One. Do you mind coming in on a call and helping me? I said, with pleasure. This company was around $220 million. And what we discovered was going through this process, can you get 1% price increase while you're focusing on volume? Cost of goods is the second biggest lever. And there was genuine, they were stunned at first, but then they started to get on board with the conversation. They said, absolutely, there is 2 to 3% price increase that we can activate. I said, great. Is that your number one take from this today? No, because we've got to improve our processes. So here's how the conversation went. I threw in the 2% price increase and it showed a profit of $5.5 million. On a 5 times multiple, suddenly we found $22 million of profit, of valuation with that 2% movement. That jaws are dropped and they were like, whoa, how do we do this? I said, our processes aren't right. I said, what does it mean? I said, we supply so much in different areas, a lot of things, a lot of moving parts in our supply to customers. I said, so what are you doing about it? I said, well, we're going to try and, I said, at $5.5 million, do me a favour. By the way, the cash generated was $4.5 million, $5.5 million on the profit. Take $300,000 of your 4.4 additional cash and resource up that area of the company that will control price and get it done for the quarter. And what we discovered was, wow, he's so right. If we get that right, then I asked them a very simple question. I said, are you using bank finance at the moment? Yes, we are. What's the cost per million? And they were very quick in answering, $137,000. I said, well, I've just found you $4 million. So if you're going to reduce your debt by $2 million, you're going to reduce your interest bill by $270,000. I've asked you to invest $300,000. You've come out over. The data is telling me a story of what we can do. From that point on, there was some hesitancy, not hesitancy in getting it right, hesitancy in the time frame for this company in getting it all right. From post that conversation, 45 minutes later, after finding them $22 million of increased valuation, $4.5 million minus the 300, so call it, actually no lie, sorry, we're going to save interest, so call it 4.1 million in 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, whatever it was in cash. They said, right, we now have a quarterly objective. We have to get our systems running by 1/1/25. We can launch our price increase. We can do everything we need to make this place better and improve our cash profit and valuation. 45 minutes. They understood. By understanding their relationships, they understood the strategy they needed to take for that quarter to be prepped for 1/1/25. Further to that, we found that a 2% cost of goods was worth not as much as the 5.5 million and 4.5. I think that ended up at around 4.5 and around 3 million on the cash, 4.5 in profit, 3 million cash. And I said, can you activate that? And they said, yeah, absolutely. We haven't spent any time in negotiation with suppliers. Add the 4 million plus the 5.5 when it comes to profit, 9 million, plus times that on a 5 times multiple, and of course they'll get more, but we simplified it. $45 million worth of valuation, almost $10 million, $8 million worth of additional hidden cash we found that's not there at the moment. And guess what? They have their strategy for 25. All of a sudden, had nothing to do with volume increase. It had to do with bettering their business, employing the price increase, activating some cost of goods reduction. And they're happy to up resource now. They suddenly found the money to do it. And they had a strategy. So it doesn't matter who you are, a $220 million company or a 25. This one's a 25.
That's crazy.
It all works the same.
I mean, the question pops into my head is that you would have thought that a $225 million company would have this, powerful financial team that's slicing and dicing, doing all the analysis, doing all the cash flow projections. And obviously that wasn't happening.
They do, but they didn't understand the mini tweaks. They didn't understand the power of 1% or 1 day. That was the big one. Let me go further. This is the end of the conversation, was they were considering an acquisition. So I said to them, why don't you run the numbers for the acquisition, the entity you're looking to purchase, through Cashflow story? And they said, they sort of looked at me and said, what do you mean? I said, well, imagine if you understood how to, whatever that company, whether it was losing money, making money, maximising its profit, we could find the power of one within that acquisition. And suddenly you'd have a true understanding of the value of that business for you. Whatever you purchased it for or about to purchase it for versus where you can take it. In 15, 20 minutes, we know how to make money. As I said to them, let's get the money back for the cost of the purchase through the power of one. Straight away, it's like, wow, you're right. You're absolutely right. Not only we can get a true understanding of what we're purchasing, how much it's going to cost us, how quickly we can get our money back, and what we can do to get that back even quicker.
No, I love this. This is great, Jonathan. Jumping forward, I'm sure there's probably people on the call that are thinking now, I need to get my hands in it. I don't have the knowledge. I need to start using this. I mean, what would be the first steps for them to either contact you or trying to find out a little bit more about the software? What would you recommend? I mean, obviously having good, solid financials and something they can trust in is probably crucial to even start the process. But what would you recommend people, listening to this, the next steps should be?
It's interesting you say trust the financials. I'm probably yet to see an organisation that has them right when I first start. So most of the time when I start an engagement, it's about making sure that we get the correct financials. That's important. The next part is the power of one actually works even if you are give or take within a reason. It'll allow you to make better decisions. If you're slightly out, it will still give you the guide. Oh, is price number one? Is cost of goods number two? Is volume three? So don't be deterred by the fact if you feel like your financials are not 100%. I often use management. Again, do we want exact numbers or do we want to be able to make better decisions? If we know how to make better decisions around a give or take, I'm fine with that. How do they do? How does it work? Really, really simple. I mentioned to you that I've got clients both in Australia and the US. I travel to the US quite a bit, but generally my day starts at around 6:30 because of time zones, and I start working with teams quite early in the morning for me, which is mid-afternoon for my US-based clients. So I'm always available. That's number one. Number two, all I need to do is reach out, Jonathan at makingsense.net.au. I'm sure, Robert, you can provide those details on somewhere in a link. And all I need to do is reach out and say to me, I really want to understand my power of one. And to understand your power of one to make better decisions, I generally can do it if I can send you a template. The power of one's actually driven by only 6 numbers, but I will get a proper template filled out with about probably about 12 to 13 numbers. We do that on the current period. You can take it right up to right now. I'm encouraging teams to send me, when I'm doing my reviews, to the end of September, and in about 4 weeks, I'll tell them to do end October. We compare it against the previous year and the previous year before that. I upload in the software. 15 minutes later, we can start the conversation. 45 minutes later, you'll have a complete strategy through the power of one. The challenge, of course, is activating it. That's where I come into it. Of course, I've done facilitating the conversations around activating it. That's really important. And the other thing that, just to finish on, the software is called Cashflow Story. It's available to anybody. There's a subscription fee to it. But like all pieces of software, it's how you drive it. How do you maximize that experience with the software so that you actually improve your business and utilize it to the best of its ability? So people say to me, can I buy it? With pleasure. I'm going to go do it myself. And they come back to me and say, I'm still not understanding how I make it work for me. Like all software, hey? We can all buy software. It's how you use it.
Well, so is that, but also you need the right people in the company to actually implement some of the changes, whether it be a production line, whether it be some of the, stuff out in the field. I mean, you need some of those smart people, those A players, to be able to actually implement some of that stuff.
That's a whole separate conversation. My number one KPI for failure last year was, if you've got a high KPI around excuses, guess what? So anyone that's excuse-driven organisation's going nowhere. Number two is every time I start engaging with a company, I ask them their A-player ratios, and they say to me, we've got 80% A-players, brilliant team. And then I do one thing that starts to shake everybody up. What's that? It's called accountability. The minute you implement accountability, you'd be surprised how your A players suddenly hide and not necessarily on board. So there is a challenge around that. That's not necessarily my job in determining that number, but I will say to you, if you're prepared to really work your business and get A players, you will need to employ a bit of accountability. If you're doing that now, terrific. This will be an easy process for you.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. Jonathan, it's been an absolutely pleasure. You've probably opened eyes for a ton of people on the call here. How do people get in touch with you?
I'm just looking at the screen now. I can see my name down there. So it's Jonathan Mond. If you search that, I'm pretty sure that comes up. JonathanMond.com. My website, you can contact me through that. Jonathan@makingsense.net.au is my email address. Either one of those, you can find me, and more than happy to sit with people. I've probably got I think I've got 4 people that have reached out in the last 2 weeks. You mentioned EO, we're on some groups together. Some people have reached out and said, I'd love to find my power of one. I think I've got 4 of them this week. So
nice.
So they're always reaching out, and we'll go from there. Yeah, feel free. Jonathan.
People are definitely needing help, and some of them are almost in that panic mode, but I'm sure you could put them at ease. Thank you again for your time.
Pleasure.
You appreciate it. I'm sure people will reach out to you. We'll stay in contact. We'll probably get you back on again to maybe do like a part 2, and you can give us some updates. So absolute pleasure, Jonathan. Thank you very much.
I might try and meet you somewhere on a golf course at some point in our lives. How's that?
Perfect.
We'll go hit some balls together.
That'd be awesome.
Done. And a whiskey afterwards, as they say.
Okay.
Done. Thanks,
okay.
Robert. Take care.
Okay. Thanks again. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Hopefully that was pure dead brilliant for you today, and you got some great Ironman mindset takeaways for your business or your leadership role. This is Robert Clickybeard. Love to get you, your friends, your employees to join us in our future journey. So please subscribe to your various podcast channels. Visit our website, commerciallandscaper.com or wilson-360.com. You could check out our digital courses. You could check out peer groups, coaching, my book, Ironman Mindset for Entrepreneurs. And we just want you to have a pure, dead, brilliant day. And finally, thanks again to Boss Business Management Software, which is the ultimate cloud-based solution providing comprehensive insights and tools to optimize performance. Join the Boss community today and transform your business so you too can say, my boss is working for me. Cheers, everyone.